This trimester we will be starting with a review of the structure of matter. We will also take another look at how atoms combine to form the materials found in living things. Matter makes up everything around you. The clouds, rain, and waves here in Lake Superior are all made of matter. They have volume and take up space. So do the rocks on the beach, and the plants along the shore. Even me, the one who took this picture, is made of matter. Matter is all of the elements, compounds, ions, and molecules that exist. All matter is made of atoms. Sometimes the atoms have gained or lost electrons and become particles known as ions. And sometimes atoms combine into larger particles called molecules. Considering just the atom shown here, each has a similar structure. Atoms are made of three particles: protons, neutrons, and electrons. The proton and neutron are found in the central core of the atom, the nucleus. Electrons occupy a cloud around the nucleus. With a mass number of 1 each, the protons and neutrons are where the mass of the atom is found. Electrons are essentially massless. Protons also have a charge of +1. Neutrons are neutral, and electrons have a charge of -1. You will be expected to remember the mass and charge of each of these particles. Because they have equal numbers of protons and electrons and protons have opposite charges, the overall electric charge of an atom is 0. It is neutral. However, if an atom loses one or more electrons, it becomes a positive cation. If it gains one or more electrons, it becomes an anion. Atoms gain or lose electrons so that they get a complete outer shell of electrons. These outermost electrons are called valence electrons. We will talk more about these electrons later. Molecules are more complex particles of matter, made of two or more atoms that combine using chemical bonds. They are not all compounds made of two or more elements. Some molecules are of a single element, like the oxygen molecule shown here. This image shares some simple molecules. There are others, like many proteins, that contain hundreds of atoms and are quite complex in their structure. Next, we will take a look at how molecular and ionic compounds form. Noble gases are the elements found in Group 8 on the periodic table. Their outermost shells are completely filled with electrons. Because of this, they tend not to be reactive and don't easily form compounds with other elements. The outer shell of electrons is called the valence shell. Other than helium, that only has 2 valence electrons, other elements can hold up to 8 elements in their valence shells. They can either share electrons with other atoms so both have full valence shells, or they can transfer electrons to other atoms, or accept electrons from other atoms. Sharing and transferring electrons are the basis for the formation of chemical bonds, which we will talk about next. In this example, hydrogen atoms have 1 valence electron. To have a full outer shell, they need another electron. The oxygen atom has 6 valence electrons. To have a full valence shell, it needs 2 more electrons. If it shares 2 of its electrons with 2 different hydrogen atoms, all 3 atoms have full valence shells and the chemical compound water forms. This sharing of electrons is called covalent bonding. We will talk more about the water molecule in a later lecture. In this example of how an ionic compound forms, the sodium atom has only 1 electron in its outer shell. The chlorine atom has 7 electrons in its valence shell. To make it so both atoms have full outer shells, 1 electron is transferred from the sodium atom to the chlorine atom. This makes the sodium atom a positively charged ion. The chlorine atom becomes a negatively charged ion. The oppositely charged ions attract, and the compound sodium chloride has formed through the process of ionic bonding. Water is a unique chemical compound with many properties that allow for the existence of life as we know it here on Earth. We will learn more about water in our next lecture.